Have you ever found yourself in a relationship that felt like a familiar ache? A love that was so intense, so consuming, but always left you feeling empty, exhausted, and a little less like yourself? Have you ever wondered why you keep getting pulled back to this same kind of love? A love that is a roller coaster of highs and lows, a love that feels like a constant negotiation of your worth? Maybe you've walked away from a connection only to find yourself craving the very chaos you just escaped. You felt a deep sense of belonging in the middle of a storm, and now, in the stillness, you feel lost. It's an intoxicating cycle, a powerful pull that defies logic. You know it's not healthy, yet it feels like home. Why do we keep returning to the fire that burns us? What if I told you this pattern isn't a flaw in your ability to love, but a deeply ingrained, almost magnetic dance born from a primal instinct to survive? We're often told that love should be easy, effortless, a beautiful unfolding. But for some, love has always been synonymous with struggle, with earning, with the constant anticipation of abandonment. What if the love you're chasing isn't love at all, but a reenactment of a childhood script, a desperate attempt to heal old wounds by finding a partner who mirrors the original source of your pain? Tonight, we're not just talking about relationships. We're talking about the deep, ancestral, and psychological forces that shape them. We're going to look at the trauma bond, the invisible cord that ties us to pain, and the path to cutting it so we can finally experience true soul-level love. At Love Threads, we don't just talk about relationships, we deconstruct them. We blend authentic, grounded insights with robust evidence-based psychology, giving you the real intelligence on why we connect, why we sometimes misstep, and how to truly thrive when love feels like a constantly shifting landscape. Tonight, we're unraveling the intoxicating yet destructive cycle of the trauma bond and exploring how to break free. The dilemma. We are taught that love is a journey of two souls merging, a beautiful dance of vulnerability and trust. But what happens when that dance becomes a frantic scramble for crumbs of affection, a desperate negotiation for a moment of peace? What happens when a bond, which masquerades as passionate connection, is actually a prison built from two people's deepest wounds? This is the labyrinth of the trauma bond. It's not just about a toxic relationship. It's an emotional maze where the exit signs are constantly changing. In this emotional maze, one person, the devoted rescuer, sees their partner as a wounded bird in need of their unwavering care. The rescuer feels a profound sense of purpose, a calling to fix, to save, to love their partner into wholeness. The more the partner resists, the more the rescuer gives, believing that their love is the only thing that can break through. This is the tragic paradox. The rescuer's self-worth becomes entirely dependent on their ability to heal their partner, while their partner's neediness becomes the fuel for the rescuer's mission. Meanwhile, the challenger, whom we can call the challenger, offers tantalizing glimpses of a deep, soulful connection, a momentary intimacy that feels like a balm for the rescuer's oldest wounds. But this intimacy is always followed by a withdrawal, a critique, or a betrayal. This push and pull dynamic creates a neurochemical roller coaster, a cycle of intense closeness and painful distance that keeps the rescuer hooked. This is the central dilemma of the trauma bond. We become addicted to the intermittent rewards. We mistake the intensity for passion, the chaos for chemistry, and the pain for a deep, profound love that is worth fighting for. We see a mirror of our own unhealed wounds in our partner, and we believe that if we can just fix them, we can finally fix the part of us that feels broken. We are not in love with them. We are in love with the idea of a redemptive love, a love that will finally make sense of all the pain we have ever experienced. But we can't heal another person into loving us, and we can't heal our own wounds through the love we were denied. Anecdotal threads. The archetypal tapestry of the trauma bond is woven from three distinct yet deeply interconnected threads. They are the stories of the devoted rescuer, the longing wanderer, and the loyal inheritor. While their paths may seem different, they all circle back to the same emotional crucible, driven by a deep, unconscious need to complete a mythic journey that began long before them. The story of the devoted rescuer. Meet the devoted rescuer. This is the individual who, from a young age, was taught that their worth was tied to their ability to soothe, to manage, and to mend the emotional landscape of those around them. Their sacred contract, according to archetypal psychology, is to be the savior. They have an innate capacity for empathy and an almost supernatural ability to see the potential in others. But this gift is also their most profound trap. The devoted rescuer often grew up in an environment where a primary caregiver was emotionally volatile, inconsistent, or in need of their own form of rescue. The child, in an effort to secure love and safety, learned to put their own needs aside to tend to the parent's emotional state. This created a blueprint for love, where caretaking is the currency of connection. In adulthood, this blueprint leads them to partners who are emotionally unavailable, struggling with addiction, or prone to dramatic crises. They see the good in this partner, the flicker of light behind the shadow, and they become convinced that their love and their love alone can bring that light to the surface. Their anecdotal journey is a tragic dance. They might meet a captivating, charismatic partner who, on first impression, seems like a powerful force. But soon, the partner's charm gives way to mood swings, sharp criticisms, and emotional manipulation. The rescuer, instead of seeing this as a red flag, sees it as a challenge. They pour their energy into making their partner feel loved, secure, and whole. They might secretly believe, if I can just love them enough, they will finally stop hurting, and then they will love me the way I deserve. But every time they almost succeed, the cycle repeats itself, and they are left feeling more depleted, more confused, and more addicted to the intermittent highs of their partner's fleeting affection. The rescuer's mythic quest is to find their own wholeness by mending another, a mission destined for failure. Now let's explore the longing wanderer. This is the archetype of someone who, in their youth, experienced an early and profound sense of abandonment, either physical or emotional. The sacred contract they carry is the search for a homeland. They are driven by an unquenchable thirst for a sense of belonging, a place or person where they can finally lay down their emotional burdens and feel truly, deeply seen. The wound of abandonment created a void, a shadow that constantly whispers, "You are not enough. You will be left again." This deep-seated fear of being alone drives the longing wanderer into relationships that offer intense, all-consuming connection from the start. They are drawn to partners who are enigmatic, who withhold love in a way that feels strangely compelling. This push and pull dynamic mirrors their childhood experience of love, something that was always just out of reach, something to be earned. Their anecdotal story often begins with a whirlwind romance, a feeling of being soulmates from the very first moment. The partner is a master of love bombing, creating an illusion of total devotion that fills the wanderer's void. But as soon as the bond is established, the partner's behavior shifts. The phone calls become less frequent, the affection becomes conditional, and the wanderer is left in a state of constant anxiety. They begin to obsessively analyze every text message, every tone of voice, trying to find a sign that the love is still there. The more they chase, the more the partner retreats, and the more desperate the wanderer becomes. The pain of the partner's withdrawal is a familiar ache, an echo of the original abandonment. It confirms their deepest fear, yet paradoxically, it also feels like the only love they've ever known. The wanderer's mythic quest is to find their own worth by securing the love of someone who is fundamentally unable to give it. Finally, we have the loyal inheritor. This archetype is shaped not just by personal wounds, but by the unconscious, inherited patterns of their family system. The sacred contract of the inheritor is to resolve a past injustice or trauma that echoes through the generations. They are often burdened by an invisible loyalty to a parent or an ancestor who experienced a similar pattern of love and loss. Their deep inner voice says, "I will not betray the suffering of my ancestors by having an easy, healthy love." Their loyal inheritor's journey is often driven by a sense of duty to their family system. They might have grown up watching a parent in a codependent or abusive relationship, and unconsciously, they are trying to fix that original dynamic. They might feel a strange sense of comfort in the chaos, a familiarity in the dysfunction that others would find alarming. They might then, unconsciously, sabotage the healthy relationship and find themselves drawn to a partner who replicates the toxic dynamics of their childhood. The new partner might have the same emotional volatility as a parent or the same pattern of silent withdrawal. This new relationship feels intensely alive, even in its pain, because it aligns with their inherited blueprint for love. The loyal inheritor's mythic quest is to honor the unspoken grief and unfinished business of their family system by repeating the same painful narrative, hoping to finally get a different ending. But without a conscious breaking of the pattern, they are simply a conduit for the same old story. Psychological depth and education. The emotional landscape of a trauma bond is not a random occurrence. It's a meticulously constructed fortress of survival mechanisms, attachment wounds, and deeply ingrained neurochemical cycles. This is where we deconstruct the architecture of this fortress and understand the psychological and biological forces at play, exploring the hidden scripts that govern our deepest connections. Family systems and systemic entanglements. A trauma bond is not just about two individuals. It's a systemic entanglement, an echo of unresolved issues from the family of origin. This perspective, explored in a therapeutic approach centered on ancestral healing, posits that we carry an unconscious loyalty to our family system. We are not just individuals, we are part of a larger whole, and the pain, secrets, and patterns of our ancestors can unconsciously influence our choices and relationships. This isn't about blaming the past, but about understanding the invisible forces at play. Consider the story of a loyal inheritor. Her grandmother, we might imagine, was a strong woman who endured a great loss, a silent betrayal that she never spoke of. This silent grief, this unfinished emotional business, becomes an invisible scar on the family system. The granddaughter, without ever knowing the full story, carries an unconscious loyalty to this pain. She might find herself inexplicably drawn to partners who are emotionally distant or unavailable, replicating the loneliness and betrayal her grandmother experienced. In this entanglement, she is not consciously choosing this path. She is an actor in the play written by her ancestors, trying to resolve a systemic burden. The trauma bond, in this context, is her unconscious attempt to finish a story that has been handed down through the generations. She is seeking to get a different outcome from an old, inherited narrative. But as long as she is operating from this place of unconscious loyalty, she is not truly free to choose her own destiny. The neurobiology of the trauma loop. The physiological experience of a trauma bond is crucial to understanding its addictive nature. When we are in a constant state of push and pull, our brains are flooded with a powerful cocktail of neurochemicals. The intermittent affection and validation from our partner act as a powerful reward system. The brief moments of closeness trigger the release of dopamine and oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals, creating a high that is intensely pleasurable and reinforcing. This is a primal brain function, a desperate search for connection and safety. But the moments of distance and betrayal trigger a different response. The lack of connection sends a signal of threat to our nervous system, activating the fight or flight response. This floods the brain with cortisol and adrenaline, the stress hormones. This cycle of reward and punishment, of pleasure and pain, is a hallmark of addiction. our brain begins to crave the high of the reward, even if it means enduring the pain of the withdrawal. This neurochemical loop makes it incredibly difficult to leave the relationship, as our brains are literally wired to crave the next hit of validation, the next moment of intimacy, even if it comes at a great cost. The constant state of high alert, the walking on eggshells feeling, keeps our nervous system in a state of dysregulation, preventing us from ever truly feeling safe and at ease. It creates an eroticized anxiety, where the high-stakes drama is confused for passion, and the chaos is mistaken for chemistry. This is the paradox of desire, where the uncertainty and occasional withdrawal from our partner paradoxically amplify our longing. We are not craving intimacy itself, but rather the intense relief that comes after a period of emotional famine. It's an addiction to the reunion, not the connection, and this is a profound distinction. The attachment dance, a dysregulated duo. The roots of the trauma bond are often found in the earliest developmental stages of life, specifically in the formation of attachment styles. A child who experiences inconsistent caregiving, where love is sometimes present and sometimes absent, often develops an anxious attachment style. This creates an internal working model where love is equated with uncertainty and anxiety. In adulthood, this person will be hypervigilant for signs of rejection and will often pursue partners who are emotionally distant or unavailable, replicating the very dynamic that created their anxious attachment. This creates a state of emotional hyperarousal, where their nervous system is constantly on high alert, searching for any sign of a break in connection. Conversely, a child who experienced emotional neglect or a lack of consistent emotional mirroring might develop an avoidant attachment style. This person learns to suppress their needs and emotions, believing that intimacy is dangerous and that they can only rely on themselves. In adulthood, they will unconsciously seek out partners who are anxious and demanding, as this dynamic gives them a sense of control and confirms their belief that closeness is suffocating. This creates a state of emotional hypoarousal, where their nervous system is constantly trying to shut down emotion and maintain distance to feel safe. The trauma bond is the perfect storm of these two attachment styles, an anxious pursuer and an avoidant distancer, locked in a dance of push and pull. They are both operating from a place of unhealed childhood wounds, their nervous systems dysregulated, and their inner children screaming for a love they were never given. This is a failure to achieve the developmental task of intimacy, which, in a healthy context, is a stage of psychosocial development where we learn to form deeply personal, reciprocal connections with others. In a trauma bond, this stage is stalled, leading to a profound sense of isolation within a relationship. The path to healing is not just about leaving the relationship, but about returning to the unfinished business of individuation, the process of becoming a fully differentiated, whole person who can hold their own self-worth and find their own sense of safety. This is the ultimate act of reparenting yourself, building an internal source of safety that cannot be taken away. This entire experience is reinforced by the narratives we tell ourselves. We become deeply invested in the story of a love that is difficult but destined, or a partner who is wounded and requires our endless care. We make our pain meaningful by framing it as a heroic journey or a profound spiritual connection. The story of a turbulent, high-stakes romance is often more compelling to our inner world than the story of a calm, consistent, and peaceful love. This narrative becomes a powerful filter through which we interpret all our experiences, blinding us to the reality of the dynamic and reinforcing our addiction to the cycle. To break free, we must first be willing to question the story we have been telling ourselves about love. Beyond the trauma bond, the blueprint for connection. The opposite of a trauma bond is not a bland or boring connection, but a deeply intentional and transformative one. This is where we shift our focus from surviving to thriving, from chaos to conscious connection. The foundation of a healthy relationship is not built on shared trauma, but on a sound relationship house, a concept that outlines the essential pillars of emotional intelligence. One of the most vital components of this foundation is the ability to make and respond to bids for connection. In a trauma bond, these bids are often missed, misinterpreted, or outright rejected, fueling the cycle of anxiety and distance. In a healthy relationship, a bid is a small, everyday gesture, a glance, a question, a touch that says, "I want to be close to you." A successful relationship is one where both partners consistently turn towards these bids, building a bank of positive emotional experiences that serves as a buffer against conflict. Furthermore, healthy connection is not about intense fusion, but about self-differentiation, the ability to maintain a strong sense of self while in an intimate relationship. In a trauma bond, there is often a profound sense of emotional fusion, where the lines between you and me blur, and one's identity becomes intertwined with the other's. The journey out of a trauma bond is a journey back to the self, a process of reclaiming your identity and recognizing that your needs, feelings, and boundaries are valid and essential. This is the ultimate act of reparenting yourself, building an internal source of safety that cannot be taken away. Finally, we must understand that love is an active practice, not a passive feeling. A trauma bond is a state of being, a reactive cycle. Authentic love, however, is a verb. It is a conscious, intentional choice to care for, respect, and be present with another person and with yourself. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a profound commitment to empathy. It is in this conscious choice, this daily practice, that we move beyond the echoes of our past and begin to build a future defined by a calm, secure, and truly reciprocal love. This shift from a reactive state to a proactive one is not about finding the perfect partner, but about becoming the person who can create a healthy and secure bond. It's about consciously reprogramming our nervous system and our minds to find safety and pleasure in connection rather than chaos. Rewriting the narrative. Healing a trauma bond is not about fixing the other person. It is about reclaiming your own story. It is about moving from the role of the survivor to the role of the creator, and consciously rewriting the narrative that has been playing out in your life. This process unfolds in 3 distinct phases, each requiring courage, introspection, and a profound commitment to your own well-being. Phase 1, the witness. The first step in rewriting the narrative is to become the witness. This is the phase of radical self-awareness, where you stop being the main character in the drama and start observing the play from the audience. This is where you identify the archetypes you've been playing: the devoted rescuer, the longing wanderer, the loyal inheritor. You begin to ask, why do I keep choosing this? What is the familiar pain I'm seeking to soothe? Example 1. You might notice a physiological response, a knot in your stomach or a racing heart, every time your partner gives a vague answer about where they were. You observe this without judgment, simply noting the connection between their behavior and your body's response. Example 2. You begin to keep a journal, logging a consistent pattern: a heated argument, followed by a period of silent treatment, and then a sudden, passionate apology or grand gesture. You see the pattern for what it is: a cycle of reward and punishment, not a true connection. Example 3. You recognize your own unconscious urge to fix a partner's problems even when they haven't asked for your help. You connect this behavior to a childhood memory of trying to make a parent happy to feel safe, and you realize you're repeating that pattern in your current relationship. Phase 2, the reclaimer. Once you have witnessed the pattern, you can begin the work of reclaiming yourself. This is the phase where you consciously start to sever the emotional ties that bind you to the old narrative. The first step in this phase is to stop outsourcing your sense of worth to your partner. You must begin to cultivate a secure inner attachment, a sense of safety and self-worth that is not dependent on anyone else's validation. This is the work of reparenting yourself, of tending to that inner child who was denied the love and consistency they needed. Example 1. Instead of immediately offering to solve a partner's problem, you practice saying, "I'm sorry you're going through that. I trust you can figure it out. You redirect that energy to your own needs, like a long-neglected hobby or a call with a supportive friend. Example 2. You choose to spend an evening alone doing a hobby you love, like painting or reading, even though you feel a strong urge to wait by your phone for a partner's text. You consciously choose to nurture yourself instead of seeking external validation. Example 3. You intentionally have an open conversation with your partner, not to accuse, but to express your own feelings. Instead of saying, "You never spend time with me," you say, "I feel disconnected when we don't have consistent quality time. I'd love for us to schedule a date night." You're reclaiming your voice and needs. Phase 3. The weaver. The final phase is becoming the weaver. This is where you begin to consciously create a new narrative for your life and your relationships. You take the threads of your old story, the courage of the rescuer, the longing of the wanderer, the loyalty of the inheritor, and you weave them into a new, healthier tapestry. You no longer need to be the rescuer for someone else because you have healed yourself. You no longer need to be the wanderer because you have found a home within yourself. You are no longer the inheritor because you have chosen to break the ancestral pattern and create a new lineage of love and respect. Example 1. You consciously choose to date a person whose demeanor is calm and whose communication is consistent, rather than being drawn to the intense, dramatic chemistry of a person who is emotionally unavailable. You value peace over passion. Example 2. You learn to celebrate small, consistent acts of love, a daily text, a partner being on time, a listening ear, instead of craving a grand but fleeting gesture that offers temporary relief from anxiety. You recognize that true love is in the quiet moments. Example 3. You intentionally build a strong, diverse support network of friends, family, and community members. This ensures your emotional well-being is not solely dependent on your romantic relationship, which is a powerful step in breaking the cycle of codependency. The turning point in this journey isn't a dramatic confrontation or a final explosive breakup. The turning point is a quiet moment of profound stillness. It's the moment you finally stop chasing. It's when you feel the familiar pull, the desperate urge to fix, to save, to earn, and you simply pause. You recognize the feeling for what it is, an echo of a past wound, and instead of acting on it, you turn inward. What if your desire for intense, chaotic love wasn't a flaw, but a message? What if your body, your nervous system, was simply screaming for a love that felt safe, a love that was a balm instead of a battlefield? What if you realized that you can choose to become your own source of safety, your own home, your own secure attachment? The turning point is the moment you choose yourself. It's when you realize that the most radical thing you can do is to stay when you want to leave, to stay with yourself and the uncomfortable feelings of loneliness, fear, and grief, and to leave when you want to stay, to walk away from the chaos that feels familiar even when it's all you've ever known. It's the moment you stop waiting for someone to heal you and begin the sacred solitary work of healing yourself. Conclusion and reflection. So ask yourself, where did you first learn that love was a struggle? What old, invisible contract are you still trying to fulfill in your relationships? What would it feel like to love someone not because you need to fix them, but simply because you see them and they see you? The journey from survival mode to soul-level love is a pilgrimage back to yourself. It is about unraveling the threads of your past so you can weave a new future, one where love is not a battle, but a quiet, constant homecoming. If this stirred something in you, if you feel the resonance of these words in your own life, we invite you to continue this journey. At Love Threads, we're not here to fix you. We're here to help you remember who you are. Have you recognized yourself or a pattern you've experienced in this discussion on trauma bonds? What steps are you taking? Or what insights have you gained on your journey to reclaim your identity and set healthier boundaries? Share your experiences and reflections in the comments below, and let's continue to unravel the heart of modern connection, one insightful thread at a time.